one of my earliest aha moments with AI was education for myself. So find something you don't understand and that you want to learn about. Go to ChatGPT or whatever, and say, explain this concept to me as if I was a preschooler. Then once you reasonably understand it, which you will probably understand pretty quickly, then say, now explain it to me as a kindergartner. Now explain it to me as a middle schooler. Now explain it to me as a college graduate. Now explain it to me as a PhD. The incremental learning methodology that way is really, really powerful. I may not get to 100% total understanding, but I'm going to get much, much closer because I've been able to sort of fragment, and pare down the philosophy into something much, much more manageable. So that would be my easiest win. Take you a minute and a half to learn something that you really weren't able to grasp before. I think that's super powerful.
Hi, Adam Gower here, founder of GowerCrowd.com and host of the Easy Win AI Real Estate Show, a podcast and YouTube series that focuses on the intersection of AI and real estate. It comes with a newsletter at easywin.ai, so be sure to go there and subscribe. It is the counterpart. They come hand in hand. You get all kinds of incredibly actionable, high value, easy to consume small pieces of information that will advance your experience and knowledge of AI. That's why it's called Easy Win AI, right? It's easy to remember. easywin.ai. Go ahead and subscribe there. My guest today is Zach Gorman, who is co-founder of RealReports.ai. RealReports is an AI-driven platform featuring Aiden, which is an advanced AI assistant designed to provide comprehensive property intelligence and document analysis specifically for residential real estate agents and brokers. They consolidate dozens of different data sources from disparate sources and then give you this interface that allows you to chat with that information. It's incredible. They do document analysis, all kinds of amazing things. You're going to hear about it from Zach today and how he is creating a small army of super-powered real estate agents and brokers across the country. Those who are adopting tech and using his platform are the ones who are going to be the winners. All right, as they say, as we discussed during the show, you're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by somebody who uses AI, and that is exactly what you're going to be learning about today: how to use AI with Real Reports. My guest, Zach Gorman, co-founder of the company. Here he is. Zach Gorman, thanks so much for joining me today. I saw a press release actually that talked about Real Reports unveiling AI-driven document analysis for supercharged property intelligence. Gotta love that. Tell me the story of Real Reports. What has inspired you to found the company, and then let's move on to what it does.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me, Adam. I'm super excited to chat today. So I'll try not to go too deep in our history, but I do think it's important to contextualize where we came from, and what led us up to this point. My co-founder and I have been in the prop tech space for many, many years. Back in 2017, we started a brokerage company, tech-enabled real estate brokerage. The vision there being to sort of unite all of the disparate service providers all under one roof, your agent, your appraisal, your title, your insurance, lender, all of that under one roof, vertically integrate, and then put a both consumer and provider tech layer across all of that to sort of streamline the process, make it easier, et cetera, et cetera. And it was really the challenges that we faced building that company that led us to build what we build today, which is always a good thing. Having real problems drive what you're actually building,
right.
And it was namely the state of residential real estate data, and this is true for both commercial and residential. But everybody knows this. Data it's a tough challenge, especially in real estate. You've got data that is fragmented. You've got data that is missing. You've got data that is not fresh. You've got data that is paywalled or expensive to access, or completely disorganized. There are a litany of problems, and we sort of experienced it in three different ways all at once. Namely, number one, we had a lot of agents working for us, and we would watch their day-to-day process working with clients, and they'd have to go to 5, 10, 15 different sources, whether that was websites, whether that's town hall, municipalities, what have you, just to get the data they needed to diligence a property, before they submitted an offer or before they put it on market. Super slow process, really tedious. And the issue is many agents get, frustrated by that and then may not even do some of that research. So that was sort of problem number one. Problem number two is we were building technology on our side. We had sort of a search, Zillow kind of competitor using machine learning to help people find the right home faster. But anytime we would try and enrich our listings with new data, new information, more than just bedrooms, bathrooms, et cetera, we would be met with this, mammoth problem of, you go to these data providers and many of them are trying to negotiate 3-year contracts with you, 6 figures, of overhead and possibly 6 months of implementation just to get one new data source for, the listings. And, we're a small, scrappy team. We always have been. And from a startup perspective, that's untenable. You can't do that. 6 months, your company could be dead. So the pace was just like incredibly tedious. And then moreover, my co-founder, James, he and his wife at the time were trying to buy a property out in California where we were living for a couple of years. And they had an offer accepted. Everything's looking great. And then they get denied by 10 insurance providers for wildfire risk. And this is just information that they did not know. This is when all the providers were starting to quietly make their exit from California because the wildfires were starting to increase there. Fortunately, they were able to negotiate their way out of that deal. But you can start to really see it's affecting the companies trying to build in the space, the providers working in the space, and the people working with the providers, the individual consumers. And that last piece is we feel that near and dear because that's incredibly it's emotionally volatile. It's financially quite consequential when things go wrong. So it was all of these things all at once that made us really step back and be like, okay, there's a problem here. And if you can create a ecosystem of accessible data, you're going to solve all of those problems all at once. So that's sort of the impetus of what led us to where we are today.
So now you have created, I'll just kind of paraphrase what I think you do, or what I've read anyway. You consolidate dozens of different data sources onto one platform that are accessible through the website. That's basically how it works, right? So you run a search. So I think of the MLS, for example. I might go to the MLS and there's quite a lot of data there, right? And I can download historical data, which actually I love to do. I love to create graphs, but it does take some effort to do. I've got to download it, run it through Excel, do some analysis, etc. So what exactly is the experience for somebody at Real Reports? It's realreports.com, right?
Realreports.ai.
.ai, sorry.
Yeah. No, it's fine. You gotta, that AI is the important piece.
It is absolutely the important, but you'd be surprised how many AI companies still have .coms. That's why I mistakenly said that.
Yeah.
All right.
Realreports.ai.
Right.
So yeah, I think 2 points, first of all. One, it's important to delineate, our philosophy is that we are, we use this analogy. If you're familiar with the product Carfax, we are the AI supercharged Carfax for homes. So when you've identified a property that you're interested in, you want to learn more, you want to know what's under the hood, so to speak, that's when you come to us. We actually don't really surface any MLS information on our platform at all. We make it wholly distinct because, again, our philosophy is by the time somebody comes to us, an agent with their client, they've already been on Zillow, they've already been on Redfin, they've already been on the MLS or on their individual broker websites. They've seen that information. We're there to fill in every other gap, besides that. So it's everything.
Give me some examples of what are those gaps then? Yeah.
Everything from permits to zoning to rental potential, long and short term, remodel potential, utilities, climate risk, flood insurance, premiums. liens, tax history. Honestly, we have like 30, 35 different providers on the platform. And that's, both to ensure that we have the highest fidelity data of any product out there. This may sound contrived, but we will look at 10 different providers to confirm that 123 Main Street has 2 bedrooms and make sure that there's consensus there. But it's also to capture the widest breadth of data that exists as well. And we're constantly adding new data as well, points of interest, what have you. It's all in there. And it's great because there's so much information. And that is one of the problems, is that there's so much out there, but just sourcing it is a big pain point, let alone then knowing what to do with it. So yeah, that's we consolidate all of that. But I do think it's important to highlight, and we can sort of dig into this, further along in the conversation, but I sort of already said this, but having the data is only as valuable as knowing what to do with data. And there are many people out there where, we've solved a pain point of just sourcing and consolidating and normalizing data and putting it all in one place and making it look really nice. But that still doesn't get you all the way there.
Where is there? When you say get you all the way there, where are we going actually with this? Like, how is it used? And what is the...
It's enabling. So our core customer is a real estate agent. They are the ones at the end of the day that are interfacing with this product, using it. We have ways for their clients to also interact with the product itself, but it's really focused on the real estate agent. And especially now, it's quite timely, but I'm sure you've been following along with all the NAR and DOJ lawsuits, lawsuits going on. There's a lot of ire in the industry right now for real estate agents, and there's a lot of demand from consumers for agents to clarify and make very clear what their value is, what their unique value is, why they're better than the guy down the street who holds his license and does one deal every 10 years. Like, what makes you unique? How do you differentiate yourself? And our product is this supercharged intelligence tool that brings all of this data into one place. It gives you such a deep dive and comprehensive understanding of what's going on with this property. But not only that, it allows an agent to not just have the data in front of them, but with the power of AI, they can actually make that data usable in a meaningful way. They can answer questions in a matter of seconds instead of saying, let me get back to you in a month. Agents are using this in buyer and listing presentations to establish credibility really early on in the process. And, in that relationship building, they're signaling to buyers and sellers, listen, I'm data-driven, I'm sophisticated, I use tools, I use technology. This all sounds like inane and simple, but the reality is many providers in the real estate space and agents and brokers, many of them do not take these extra steps to really differentiate themselves. It's been an industry, unfortunately, very beleaguered by a lot of laziness and a lot of, walking through molasses to get to the future.
The funny thing is, I tell you what, I'm very cynical. When I first started podcasting many years ago, and I just have a license, and I've actually literally sold $1 billion of real estate not as an agent, as a broker.
Sure.
But so I'm very cynical. It's like that Groucho Marx things, right? Being a member of a club that would have me as a member. Who wants to be a member? But particularly residential. I used to go through viewings with residential. But I don't want to be too hypercritical. I've got some questions because it's an amazing opportunity.
Of course.
And they'd walk you through a place and say, okay, here's the kitchen. I thought, gosh, I'm so glad you pointed that out. I would never have figured it out. We walked through.
Yeah.
So so you're talking about differentiating, assisting agents and residential brokers to differentiate themselves as being amongst, the top 1%. But let me ask you this: why would you not? I mean, the implication of what you've said is that your platform is not available to home buyers. Why is it available? If I go on and I decide if I'm buying a house, why wouldn't I want to?
It is available. It is available. Anybody can go get it. It's available for anybody off the shelf. This isn't just enterprise exclusive. There's no wall that you have to enter your license number. It is available to anybody. Philosophically, we believe that it should be available to anyone. That said, we're a business, so we have to make money at some point. And the reality is individual consumers there may be a slice of a slice of a slice who will go through the process of actually paying for this data. But people have been sort of conditioned to think that information about homes is just available to them, with these large search platforms. But again, we're filling in all the gaps of the data that doesn't appear on there, and there's a cost associated with that. So anybody who's enterprising enough can go get these reports. Any property in the entire United States, it's totally available. It's just we have done a lot of testing with individual cohorts and markets, and for the time being, I think at scale we will probably get more and more consumer usage. But right now, the product is best used as a way to empower agents with more information and more data to solidify that relationship between them and their client, build that trust, build that credibility. Because again, for somebody, who on their own time likes to invest, or, that's a whole part of their life, then sure, this is a great product for them. But most consumers won't even know what to do with that data, don't want to pay for that data, and honestly are better suited working with a real estate professional who can contextualize that information.
You can actually use and internalize it. Well, the other thing is as well, you've got significantly, totally different angle, but from a financial perspective for you as well, individual homeowners are going to have incredibly high churn, right? Yes. We're looking for a house and then we bought one, so we don't need to, right? We're done.
10 years.
For the next 10 years, exactly. Yes. Whereas agents like a profession. All right, so all the different kinds of data that you process, and this incredible platform that you've got here. What would you say? I presume you know what are the 3 most used, or how do people interact? Let me try and figure out how to ask this question without like giving you something that's not answerable. What I'm trying to get at is you analyze data, you know how people use the platform. What are the kinds of sources or the kinds of data out of all of those that you put into one place that is most used, you think, that is the most valuable by agents?
It's a great question. I'll try to give you a halfway decent answer. My first answer is not great, and it's just that it really depends. Part of the reason why we aggregate so many different data sources is you never know what piece of information is going to really stand out to somebody, because every buyer has different preferences. They're looking for different things. You may have one buyer who's like, listen, I'm looking for a place that has great schools. I want to know all about the schools. I want to know, what are the private schools like? What are the public school systems? Really want to dig in there. Alternatively, you could have somebody who's buying a property as an investment property. So maybe they're trying to decide, okay, do I want to rent this out long-term, or do I want to put this home on Airbnb? And, for them, then they're looking at the long-term and short-term rental potential sections of our reports and going back.
So what do those look like? Let's drill down on that. It's a really interesting, angle. So what do you provide that help people make that decision and understand?
Yep. So with both sections, there's slight variability in terms of the types of data, but basically we're looking at a series of comps in the area. We're looking at cap rates with short-term rental potential, and long-term, we're looking at like, what is your monthly ROI? With short-term, you're looking at like occupancy rates. What does it look like per year? How much can you charge? How much are you going to make per month? How much can you charge per night throughout each month of the year? We'll even link you out to live comps on Airbnb or Vrbo so that you can sort of see how properties are being marketed, how those comps are being marketed in your area. So it gives you a really good snapshot to just say, like, what are we looking at here? Is it even worth putting this place up for long-term, or should we just really dig in on Airbnb and that sort of short-term style of rental? So again, it really, in terms of the data that gets the most focus, it really depends on who the client is. Alternatively, some agents are just using this for their own internal diligence, just again, to help boost their credibility, make sure that they have the answers for their clients. So, they could be digging through and just want to know more about the tax history of the property, or they want to know utilities in the area. Maybe they want to estimate solar, installs, things like that. So
okay,
it really can be, whatever day.
You got me all excited. So hang on a sec. I want to go back to Airbnb, and I've decided that I'm going to start doing dual screens. That's how I'm going to. And historically in the podcast, it's always just whoever's talking. I'm doing both. So now you can see me when you're talking. Everyone, including you, can see me looking somewhere else and fiddling about. And the reason that I just did it, then don't be distracted by that. I'm hyper focused on what you're talking about. Is that I'm trying to figure out how much a particular property can generate in Airbnb revenue. And the way to do that, I don't know how to do that. other than calling other, managers, essentially, because you know how much they rent for ostensibly, right? I mean, you can look online and see, but you don't really know how often or what kind of deals they cut. Or so talk more about how you do this. Am I correct? I look at an address and say, if this was an Airbnb, how much could I earn from this on a top line on an annual basis, even bottom? You could do
Annual
that.
and monthly. It'll show you January, February, March, April, May, because some places, ski towns are going to have really expensive, winter months associated with them. They may also have really expensive summer months because many ski towns also function as great, summer hiking, things like that. So you'll be able to see that breakdown on a month-to-month basis. And the providers that we use, that we aggregate to support some of that information, they're out there collecting all of that information from Airbnb and VRBO. They're actually looking at all of those individual comps, seeing how often they're being rented, how much occupancy they have throughout the year, what they're being rented for. And so we just streamline all of that.
And that comes straight through your pipeline and out the other end of RealReports. Right. Yeah. Consider one membership sold.
Yeah, it's super cool. And I mean, again, like, you just never know what's going to resonate with a client. And taking the rental potential, like, you may have clients who are not even, especially in a market like this, when, inventory is low, there's a big crunch. Everybody's acting irrationally and emotionally, and everybody's looking for different ways to think about real estate right now. And so renting out your home may be a great way to sort of open the door. Maybe for you're a first time home buyer, you're like, listen, we weren't thinking multifamily, but there's actually a really interesting, financial incentive here to, like, put this, get a multifamily with another unit, put it on Airbnb. And, like, just, I think having that creativity and that insight that the data supports can really, again, like, take a client who may be in some spiral about, like, there's nothing for me, the home that I wanted isn't available. So what am I going to do? And it's like, well, let's think about something else. It's really just, it's, again, arming the agent with all this information to, make them more credible and make sure that they have this unique value. But part of that unique value is, like, let's think more thoughtfully and creatively about what we're doing together in this home search. So it's a really cool, added, benefit.
It's very, very cool. I'm actually can't wait to give it a test drive as soon as we hang up, actually.
Yeah, sure.
What about, helping? One of the biggest challenges that agents have is getting listings.
Yeah.
That's really where the money is, particularly with these lawsuits and whatever else, that's where it is. So do you, in what way do you, or can you help agents with that aspect?
Yeah. I mean, listen, we definitely don't try to build for everybody, but this product works and it slots in very well for both buyers and sellers, or, from the agent's perspective, working with buyers or working with listings. So both on the buy and sell side, like, the first time an agent is using this, it's that buyer presentation or that listing presentation. They're approaching this client, they're trying to win that deal. And we have this agent, his name's Jimmy Moscoso. He's one of our earliest users, and this past January started really using reports on every listing presentation that he went on. He's coming to that. He's got the report on his iPad. He's sitting down with his clients. He's like, listen, let's go through this together. Let's interact with this product. Let's look at this data. Let's have a discussion around it. And he won a $6 million listing, and he literally attributes it to the Real Report, to the data, and to the AI piece of it. And it's a blend of things. But again, it's that credibility. It's that access to information other people don't have. And it's just the signal that, oh, wow, this guy's going above and beyond. He's using these tools. He's data-driven. He's sophisticated. These are the things that you want from your agent. You don't want an agent who just sort of is like, I don't know, let's buy a house. Let's sell a house. What are you like, I'll just think of the numbers out of thin air. And obviously that's an overgeneralization. But the reality is there are a lot of agents there who do not put in the effort. So this just becomes this clear and concise differentiator for an agent really, really early on in the process, especially on the listing side.
Okay, so now I got carried away with just being so interested in what you're talking about that I forgot to ask you the number one most important question right at the beginning. Aiden, Right.
Yeah.
So who is Aiden? What is Aiden? And how do you use AI? I can't believe that we've all the way through already. And I've not even asked you. Like, so
No, it's
what is
fine.
the
It's fine.
AI overlay that really sets you apart here?
Yeah. So, I mean, and it's core to our product because there are obviously other property report products out there. But, when we were researching these products and sort of the competitive landscape, a lot of the feedback that we got talking to agents, things like that is like, yeah, sure, there's a lot of this information. Number one, it's mostly just MLS data reskinned, repackaged. It's not this like deep dive into all of these other data types. But number two, you can put tons and tons of data in front of somebody, but they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to process it. They don't even, there's a point at which, and we watch this like with, user videos, like watching people actually look through data. You can see like their eyes glaze over. You put too much stuff in front of somebody, you give them decision fatigue. They just don't even want to interact with it. Aiden solves all of this, and it's incredibly powerful. So I said this earlier, but our insight is having data is only as valuable as knowing what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Aiden is knowing what to do with it. So we use a large language model trained on all of the data that we pipe in for every one of these reports. And it allows somebody very similar to ChatGPT to converse with the AI and basically ask questions about the property data. So you can say, is this home zoned for an ADU? Can I build an ADU in the backyard? Or what is the rental potential of this property? Or, how much money am I going to save on utilities every year if I install solar at this property? It's just a way to protract the time of going through the data itself. You just need to ask a question and you get a response instantaneously.
I just love that.
Yeah,
And you got a document analysis feature as well, right?
Yeah, so we just launched that. That uses multimodal AI, and that's obviously people have been talking about it, but there are no implementations, especially in real estate, that have done it meaningfully at all. And so, what that allows you to do is instead of just ingesting data, it also allows you to ingest documents and photographs and video. And we started with documents because that's one of the huge pain points. Again, we know from experience, we worked in this space. Condo documents, inspection reports, appraisals, sellers disclosures. You're talking about like 10, 20, 50, even 90-page documents that real estate agents are, in many times obligated to look through line by line. And the reality is you're always, whether you do it or not, you're going to lose something in translation because it's such an immense amount of information. And so now Aiden, all you have to do is upload those documents directly into the Real Report. Aiden will take 2 or 3 seconds, digest everything in that document, give you a summary in real time. You'll see it, write it out. It takes a couple seconds so that you really are, in just a couple seconds, you capture those high level insights, sort of key outline of what's in the document, what's in the contents. But then it also adds it to the corpus of data in the report itself. So you can ask surgical questions of like, what comps were used in the appraisal, or, what were the biggest things found in the inspection report that I should notice, or in the, this has actual like legal implications, but with like a condo doc, are there any assessments on the property? Do I need to disclose anything here? Like that's a real painkiller because, you're going to have a lawsuit on your hands if you miss some of this data. So
could you ask a question like an open-ended question? Are there any red flags I should be aware of?
Yeah,
with this?
It's just like ChatGPT, so that like you can talk to it. It's in whatever language or conversational tone that is, unique to you, and it understands and can inference whatever you're talking about.
Zach, does it have a voice?
Not yet. It's very easy for us to turn on that, just like speaking to the microphone. All in due time. It's definitely coming. But as of yet, no, there's no voice yet.
Okay. We don't have how. It's not on a talk on day. All right. I love saying that. As everyone's moving towards how. How do you ensure the accuracy of the AI insights that you get out of this thing?
Yeah, so we've taken. I'm sure you're very attuned to this, but there's obviously a lot of issues with AI around hallucination. If the AI doesn't know something, it reaches into the ether and it just sort of concocts an answer for you. We've taken a lot of time and consideration.
A very human fault.
Very, which I don't know. It's one of those bizarre, like, okay, but we've taken a lot of time and consideration to put rails on our prompt so that it is only looking at the information in the report. It does not think outside of that. If it doesn't have an answer, it's going to tell you that. It's going to be like, if there are no permits in our data source, let's say we're looking at a property where, they haven't digitized public records yet. So those permits just don't even exist. Very likely that there have been permits pulled and, filed on the property, but Aiden will recognize that and be like, hey, based on the information I have, there are no permits available. However, go check with your county or, whoever, in order to see if there's actually anything that hasn't been digitized. But
and if you find it, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also trained on fair housing. Obviously there's certain data in the reports around demographics and crime and sex offender registry, things like that, where, there are sensitive issues around redlining, block busting, and like, we're very aware of that. We want to make sure that we, make that very, very clear. So if people are asking questions that are sort of out of bounds there, it will be like, listen, this violates fair housing. It understands all of that and can really sort of point people in the right direction.
I see. Gosh, that's an interesting idea. Okay, let's start moving towards wrapping up, actually,
Sure.
Even though I don't really want to. So I've got a whole list of questions. Let me see. What kind of feedback have you received on the AI-driven document analysis, and what future developments are planned for Real?
Yeah, people love it. I mean, that already just the ability to interact with the Copilot and sort of query the data that we've aggregated, like that was already a huge leap forward again, because you're saving people time, you're streamlining process, you're just making it so that people don't have to crunch numbers or do this big, data research and diligence on their own. But the documents is sort of this next step. And I think you can really see people's eyes light up because, again, everybody knows this, but like we used to have an office out in California for our brokerage, and it's like you get handed these massive disclosure documents and you're like, oh my God, like, okay, page 1 of 80, let's go. So, I mean, especially in the real estate industry, it's speed to lead. Like, this business is, you have to be fast if you want to be productive. And so the time savings is just so clear. But again, I said, it's really a painkiller when it comes down to some of these legal issues around, like, if there are disclosures and you miss something like that, you can really get in some hot water. And so being able to utilize Aiden and this multimodal system in order to find like the critical data that you need and make sure that that's always being surfaced, like there's immense power around that. And, to your second point, like, where are we going from here? Obviously, multimodal extends beyond just documents. We'll be able to upload imagery very soon. Video as well. So you can certainly envision walking around the property, being able to do sort of a real-time inspection, lightweight inspection on a property. Like, the best part about AI is like, we're able to build and iterate as fast as all of the models, out there. And AI just happens to be, it innately is one of the most hyperbolic growth technologies that's ever existed. And so we get all of the benefits of that. And it's, I could spin you a whole yarn of how all of this just continues to become more and more fascinating. I think at the end of the day, what we're striving towards is being able to really capture the, single source of truth, the highest fidelity information, the most complete information on a property that exists. And AI is going to be instrumental in putting all of that together and making that data usable and accessible in a meaningful way.
Right. I'm slightly anxious to get off this call, even though I want to keep going, only because I want to run a search as soon as we're off. So trust me, it's the first thing I'm going to do. But let me ask you some slightly different questions now, if you don't mind. It's up to you if you want to answer them or not. But you're a startup, right? Basically.
Yeah.
So you just stop me if this is like off target. How are you guys financed?
So we raised some capital.
Venture capital or friends and family? Like, how did you do it?
Venture capital. And that's, both from institutional VCs, but also, smaller angels and strategic investors, sort of a blend. We raised our seed round at the end of last year in November. We announced like early this year.
But you announced it. How much did you raise?
We raised $2 million. So, it was I spent the better part of my year doing that. It's a hard ecosystem to raise money in right now. Prop tech especially has been very underwhelming in terms of the returns that VCs have seen in the last 10 or 15 years. And so that plus the macro environment for venture capital in general, the corrections, market corrections.
I'm going to jump in because I just want to keep going at speed. So
Yeah.
is AI changing that dynamic, Zach? I mean, you talk about prop tech, but prop tech, AI tech is prop AI tech, whatever you want to call it. It's a different animal, right? I mean, it's exponentially growing. It's a different kind of thing. Are you finding a different?
I think it's less the AI, because at the end of the day, the reality is any company building technology is going to be using AI. If they aren't already, they're probably doing something wrong. It doesn't need to be core to their product, but it should be part of their process. It should be part of how they're building, how they're scaling headcounts, how they're, internal systems. Like anybody who's not using it should be. So I wouldn't say that AI is sort of the switch, but I would say that like a large amount of prop tech venture investing over the last 10, 15 years really just went to fintech models, and much less to explicit technology. Now we're seeing sort of the pendulum swing because all of those fintech models went broke, are down 90% in public markets, and there's a huge demand for actual durable, sustainable businesses and technology.
So why wouldn't you? And this is kind of tipping my toe into the waters of an industry I don't really know very well. It's the venture capital industry. I mean, I've, my life come across it. But why would you not attempt to, I mean, with something as valuable and as useful as this, grow organically, and spend all the money that you make on marketing and just get more people and write great newsletters and advertise and go and speak at conferences and generate revenues and grow that way?
Well, I think my answer is twofold. Number one, it's great to get sort of an initial bump with capital to help just move things faster and just get more deeper market penetration, faster adoption, faster product build out, all of that. The capital is really critical for. That said, our only goal this year is cross the line of profitability, which we are very much on track for. After that, especially because, sort of circling back to your question, because of things like AI, there is a different need for hiring, scaling headcount, hiring engineers, things like that venture capital used to be critical for. It was like you raise capital so that you can go hire 50 engineers to build out these massive products and massive product development teams. You don't have to do that anymore. And honestly, venture capital has since reset, and they're looking for sustainable, profitable businesses. Like that's the most interesting thing to them. We may opportunistically take on more capital if it means growing into different verticals, because what we're building besides the Real Report is data infrastructure and a data utility that could power the entire industry, from lending to insurance to whoever. There may be a reason that's, a certain level of investment would help us scale into some of those other verticals. That said, I love the idea of never raising money again. And I'm just,
the other thing as well, Zach, is, I mean, there's always a case for staying hyper focused on something that you do really, really well. It's so easy to get distracted by, oh, look, we could do this and we could do that. And there's an opportunity there and that and the other.
We have absolutely done that before. And it's been a huge part of our thesis with this, second company, of just like we're not just building for residential real estate. We're building for brokerage. We're building for agents. We're actually not even building for agents. We're building for 10% of agents, top producers, data-driven, use technology, like more concise you can identify who your customer is and just build for them and never think about anything else.
You're so absolutely right. So how do you, what marketing do you do? What's the most effective?
It's an interesting question. I mean, at our previous company, we learned a lot of hard lessons around marketing and spending on marketing. When we started this company, we challenged ourselves as a team and said, we will spend no money on marketing until we are profitable, period. Outside of going to conferences, because so much of our industry is, handshakes at the bar, getting drinks with people and getting exposure through conferences. Outside of that, we do not spend a dollar. I lead all of the marketing on our side. Our marketing thesis is it's all signal. Every week we put out a new announcement, a new feature, a new article, something just to create this signal, because it's really, that's what people are looking for.
Is it working?
It is working. Absolutely. More and more I get feedback from people that are like, wow, you guys are everywhere. What's going on? Like, I've never seen this kind of pace and progress. And I'm not just patting myself on the back. It's like,
No, but you should do. And how are you doing that? When you say you're signaling, is that posting on social media? Like, what are you talking
yeah,
about? I mean, I
say,
saw this. I saw this press release. So
yep.
it looks like you went with one of these. They'll send out 5,000 press releases, whatever.
Yeah, you just be really
Oh, you don't
strategic.
have to pay a bit for that, actually. I know you have to pay five.
Yeah, very, very little, because
Yeah,
that's
it's de
like
minimis.
the omnibus press releases. But like, I've spent time building relationships with a couple key journalists in our space. There are not very many publications that actually capture the large amount of attention. So I have really great relationships with a small subset. And again, it's just like, you put out a press release, you put a LinkedIn post up, you get one article written, you send out to your email list, and then you do it the next week, and then you do it the next week, and you just keep doing that. And that signal of like more product features, more partnerships, more interviews, like all of that really starts to have
It's really interesting you say that, because it sounds like the kind of product that you have, which has a point of sale, an actual point of sale. It almost sounds like, this is a whole different discussion we shouldn't get into right now, because I've got 3 sign-off questions for you I'm going to ask you. But it does sound like it's something that you could plug into something like Facebook. We do a massive amount of Facebook advertising to find accredited investors. But because you got a point of sale at the other end, you put in something here, you know how much is coming out here. And in some cases, you can, if you do it right, create a flywheel that actually makes money from the spend itself, or at least is self-liquid.
100%. And listen, at scale, we will absolutely be doing things like that. We will invest deeply in SEO. But the reality is, most of the partnerships in our distribution right now comes through larger deals with MLSs, with big brokerages, and it's sort of top down. Those deals, again, are negotiated at the bar. So the organic traffic that comes in, the agent by agent by agent, at scale, that will become quite interesting for us. But for where we are in this early stage, we just concentrate on, like, we launched with Prime MLS, big MLS in New England. It's like, that's 11,000 agents all at once that we get exposure to, can market to directly, and more than anything, have the buy-in of the leadership and the executives to build that sort of bridge of trust between us and their members right off the bat.
It's interesting you say that. I'm just going to look at my CRM. I am a licensed broker. It's like that club that I don't want to be a member of. I shouldn't say that too loud, should I? But let me see. I wonder if, are you on mine actually? I should have a look. Yeah, I can log in while we're talking. I shouldn't do that. I was actually going to ask you about your avatar. Is it the individual agent, or is it the corporate at the corporate level? Now it sounds like corporate level at the moment, right? Is your avatar like the person that runs an MLS?
Yeah, I mean, again, like, the agents are the ones, they all have their own accounts. They subscribe to that, the RealReports tiers that we offer, but we use the brokerage, for deeper adoption and penetration in a particular organization. Because, for instance, when we work with a brokerage, we can tap into their lead generation department, their reload teams, their office admins, their trainers. We get all of these touch points to sort of remarket the product and build the trust between us and the agents directly. Or when we're working with an MLS, these are massive distribution channels. An MLS has the attention of potentially hundreds of thousands of agents, depending on who they are. And so we'll negotiate a deal with them where the MLS is basically able to offer a great discount or perk or different sort of enterprise features associated with the product. And that's, again, just another reason for agents to use it. And the last point I'll say is also, agents are creatures of habit. You have to meet them where they are, and you have to get integrated with the tools that they use on an existing, daily basis. If you don't do that, they will not use your product. So we integrate with CRMs, we integrate with MLS platforms, so that we're always a button, we're a step in the process, we're something that they just see every day they use their product. That gets them into ours.
All right. So I'm going to ask you 3 sign-off questions, fast, rapid fire questions. But before I do, I did log in, being the multitasker that I am, hyper-focused nevertheless, to my own MLS. Actually, I do subscribe to a local MLS. And sure enough, right here, I've got a bunch of options. I've got one here, map and field searches for tax record data. That's one click. I got to go into that whole database. And here's another one. What's this one? market data into graphs and charts if you want. But I got to log into that separately. Another one, secure electronic tenant screen. Actually, it says rent, whatever it's called, rental rates. I mean, it's basically a half dozen options I got to click on to decide and look at. It's what a real pain. I never use any of them.
Yep.
Right. 3 sign-off questions. The first one, why should real estate professionals, right, agents and brokers be paying attention to AI today?
Simply put, because the agents and brokers who begin using AI will replace the ones who do not. I'm not ready to claim that AI will replace the agent's job or the broker's job in its entirety at all. There's always going to be some need. There may be certain services or modular pieces that get further and further displaced by technology, but the reality is what will happen, and it is happening already, is agents who use AI will replace agents who don't. They will produce faster, they will close leads faster, they will nurture contacts faster, they will provide value faster. All of these things, AI is just going to help set apart, this cohort who does from this cohort who doesn't. That is why they should be paying attention to it.
Right. You're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by somebody who uses AI.
100%.
That's basically what it wants down to. Yep. Zach, so what AI tools do you use daily? What apps and tools do you use in your regular daily life?
Let's see what's in my folder. I use ChatGPT, of course. I subscribe. Dolly is now part of that. I use Bard. I use Leonardo. I use Copy AI. I use Lex. I mean, I have mitigated probably having to hire 5 or 6 people already by just using AI. And it doesn't mean that I'm, I still have to do extra work, but I'm able to get myself, whether it's blog posts or social media content or, graphics and imagery or press release, I can get everything to 80% with just a good, concise prompt. And then I can take, cross the T's, dot the I's on my own and make it my own and, make sure that it's in my voice and the way that I want to present it. But I use it as much as possible because, again, same for the previous question. If you're not, you are just going slower than you need to now. And I also think that it's critical to use these tools on a habitual basis because not only will the people who use AI replace the people who don't, the people who use AI more are going to be, like with anything, more skilled at using those tools in a way that people who just sort of use it now and again are not going to be able to. So something as simple as prompt engineering, you can see somebody who's never used it before be like, write me a blog post about interest rates versus, okay, I need you to write me a blog post about interest rates. It should be in this tone of voice. It should be this, length. It should use this X, Y, Z. It's like that. The better you are at articulating yourself, the better that those tools respond and give you what you want, which again, just speeds you up even further.
Outside of the LLMs, this is second question, part 2. But outside of the LLMs, what apps do you use the most, or tools, would you say? You rattled off a few. Pick one.
I love Dolly, just from a artistic perspective. In a past life, I was a musician and have always, even with what I do now, I always have reason to be interacting with, graphic imagery and design. So I use that quite often to, iterate on imagery, add imagery, edit imagery, things like that.
Last question. So the name of this show is the Easy Win AI Real Estate Show. And the idea is that somebody listening can, as soon as they stop, so as soon as the show is over, they can immediately go and do something really, really easy that really gives them an insight into, wow, didn't know that was possible, but it has to be an easy win. Can you suggest something that viewers could do immediately afterwards? Go to this, do that, and you'll never believe what will happen when you do it.
Yeah, of course. One of my earliest aha moments with AI was education for myself. So find something you don't understand and that you want to learn about. Go to ChatGPT or whatever, and say, explain this concept to me as if I was a preschooler. Then once you reasonably understand it, which you will probably understand pretty quickly, then say, now explain it to me as a kindergartner, now explain it to me as a middle schooler, now explain it to me as a college graduate, now explain it to me as a PhD. The incremental learning methodology that way is really, really powerful because, you know, sometimes I have a fascination with quantum mechanics and I'm terrible at math. And so there become some pretty key impasses in terms of my ability to understand some of the things that I'm interested in. But this just gives me frameworks that are so much more digestible because oftentimes the literature can be pretty dense. And it's just a way to sort of de-escalate that and remove the frustration. And again, I may not get to 100% total understanding, but I'm going to get much, much closer because I've been able to sort of fragment, you know, and pare down the philosophy into something much, much more manageable. So that would be my easiest win. Take you a minute and a half to learn something that you really weren't able to grasp before. I think that's super powerful.
Zach Gorman, co-founder, RealReports.ai. Thanks for joining me today.
Really appreciate it, Adam. This is great.
All right, that was Zach Gorman, co-founder of RealReports.ai. Fascinating, right? Well, thank you, Zach, for joining me. It was really interesting. I'm looking forward to looking at that report that I kept hungering for as we were talking. And I really appreciate you spending the time with me and sharing some of your insights into what you do on a daily basis and giving that great suggestion right at the end there for how to educate yourself a little with ChatGPT. And thank you also, dear listeners and viewers, for joining me today. If you've not already subscribed, just be sure to go to easywin.ai, subscribe to the newsletter. It goes hand in hand with the podcast, with the show, and we will be delivering significantly more information via the newsletter, but also in Easy Bites, right? Easy Win AI, that's our name and mission to deliver you some high value, immediately actionable information and tools that you can use right away to advance your career, your productivity, and your appreciation in a gentle, step-by-step way of the sheer power of AI and its likely influence on the real estate industry in the weeks, months, and years to come. Right, that's it. Thank you again for joining me, everybody. I look forward to seeing you next time. But for this time, this is Adam Gower signing off.